I want to thank them for hosting us here today. And it is amazing to have our Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, join us here today. Our Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer, is here. Our very own New York Senator Gillibrand is here. Our Congressman Brian Higgins is here. The Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes has joined us this morning. Mayor Byron Brown you'll be hearing from. We also have County Executive Mark Polenkars. Let's give him a round of applause. New York State DOT Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez has joined us. And the woman who made this all happen, Stephanie Barber Jeter, has joined us. Well, I'm here to welcome you to my hometown. I'm so proud to be a Buffalonian. Go Bills. There's always next year. It's our city. There's always next year. But we're not waiting another year to correct an injustice that has plagued this city for far too many years. Back in the 50s and 60s, people thought that this part of our community was disposable. It didn't have any political clout, and they could do whatever they want right through it, and they did. They literally severed the artery that was part of the beating heart of a growing, beautiful, robust black community right here in Buffalo, and nobody gave a damn back then. But today, we are here because of the hard work of people for over a decade, 15 years, who believed in something that was so bold and so audacious that people thought they could never get it done. But last January, in my very first budget as governor of the state of New York, I said, I have the resources, I have the knowledge of this community, and I have the passion to right that wrong once and for all, and to bring back and unify this magnificent community into one beating heart. And that's why we put $1 billion behind making sure we could restore the Humboldt Parkway. And I'm proud that this is one of 4 Reconnect Communities projects here in the state of New York. We're finishing up in Rochester. We're doing this in the Bronx, the Cross Bronx Expressway. We're doing it at I-81 in Syracuse. These are projects that are correcting a decision made decades and decades ago that certain communities didn't matter anymore. And we're here to say they do. And I'm really proud to have our Secretary of Transportation here, because this is also going to be one of the largest projects in their Reconnecting Communities project across the entire nation, because they believe in us as well. So I want to thank President Joe Biden for the money from the infrastructure bill worked on by our senators, Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Gillibrand, to get the resources to help us do it in the way it needs to be done. I'll let them speak more about that. But this is one of my top priorities. I am so committed to this project, and we will get the workers we need to get it done. And we have the first time in this nation mandated local hiring from this community, so the people who are hurt the most can get these good paying jobs, over 1,500 jobs. And if you know anybody who wants to go into the trades, give us a call, because we have so many jobs now. Opposite of when I grew up here in Buffalo, and all my siblings had to leave because there were no jobs. Now the jobs are there, but let's connect the people to the training and the opportunities, and they'll be connected to a great paycheck. That's what this is about also. But not just building a road, or not fixing a road, healing a neighborhood, but what we do afterward. This is going to be populated with beautiful parks and new homes and rehabilitated homes and businesses that are so vibrant. This will be one of the hottest properties in all of Western New York. Mark my words. I am so excited to get this project going. And with that, I'm going to introduce a great partner in this project, our great Mayor Byron Brown.
Thank you very much, Governor Kathy Hochul, and thank you for all you do to strengthen the city of Buffalo and to strengthen the state of New York. Let's give our great governor another round of applause. We're very appreciative to have Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg here in our city. We're thankful to President Biden for honoring his commitment to never forget about the city of Buffalo. Let's give Secretary Buttigieg a round of applause. And I want to also recognize and thank one of the best congressional delegations in the nation, Majority Leader of the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. And during the pandemic, when the president was trying to get the infrastructure law passed, someone that I heard from getting updates almost every single day was our Congressman Brian Higgins. She's not up here with us now, but I need to recognize Assembly Majority Leader Crystal People-Stokes, who has been a real champion for this project. The governor said it well. For 15 years, this community, the Restore Our Community Coalition, the Hamlin Park Community and Taxpayers Association, met every single week pushing this project, worked every single week to address an inequity that happened to this community when the expressway went in and divided the black community in Buffalo. They fought every single day to bring this to the attention of federal, state, and local lawmakers. And you know what? The community won. Let's give them a round of applause. The communities are the real heroes in this process. But we have to thank our president and our federal leaders. We have to thank our governor and our state leaders for listening to this community. And as you heard Governor Hochul say, this is going to be more than just an infrastructure project, because the harm that was done to this black community, the harm that was done to East Buffalo, the harm that was done to the city of Buffalo is more than just infrastructure. So we have to focus on homes. We have to focus on black businesses. We have to make sure that there are black and brown workers on this project when over $1 billion is being spent to reconnect the community. And all of these leaders up here have committed to that. So I'm a happy person today. We talked about outcomes just a few minutes ago and what the community expected, what the community wanted to see in a vibrant East Buffalo, a thriving East Buffalo, an East Buffalo where every home is beautiful, where every child has hope for a bright future. This project is going to be transformational, and it's now my pleasure, my privilege, my honor to recognize the president of the Hamlin Park Community and Taxpayers Association, one of the heroes, one of the sheroes of this project, Stephanie Barber Jeter.
Okay, so this right here, okay? Yeah. So first I want to say an important statement. You do nothing alone. So I would like to ask the members of the fantastic Restore Our Community Coalition to stand up. Stand up, y'all. Come on, y'all. Let them see what they're working with. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody in the back. Thank you very much. This is a proud day for all of us. It is a lot of years doing this. And I want young people to know nothing happens quickly. It takes time. You'll get frustrated, mad, sometimes very glad. But on a day like this, you're awfully proud of the fact that your work has not gone unlooked at and understood. You get to understand that people like you and me and others of all cultures and races believe you need to have a chance to make it. So we proudly leave you a neighborhood when it's your turn. You're going to love this place. East Buffalo will be what you want it to be. I want to also say that the people standing behind me, elected officials, for once in my lifetime, gathered together and decided they would deliver the goods to the community. And it was, we were almost in shock. They called us together right before the pandemic in the park, and they said, you know what? We're going to deliver this to you. We're going to work in the way you want us. We're going to bring the money to make this transformation. And of course, we were like, okay, we heard that before, right? Yeah. But guess what? They brought home the bacon.
Here we are.
Right?
Here we are.
Brought home the bacon. You know? I mean, and lots of them were participating early. I mean, Senator Gillibrand wrote this law 15 years ago. You know, to hire local and, you know, local businesses. You know, the Congress Majority Leader, Mr. Schumer, would come to town and say, one day it's going to happen, you know? And then we had the governor, and then we had Crystal Peoples-Stokes, our girl, right? Who pushed this big rock up the hill. Because you know what? $1 billion is a lot of money. I don't know what you think, but I know. And then the money that we got today, the $55 million, that's a lot of money. I don't personally know anybody with that amount personally, but that's a lot of money. And so we are grateful, thankful. We know that God is looking down on us. I want to introduce to you my favorite Irish congressman. We first worked together when we worked on the Buffalo Common Council staff. He was always ready to serve. He is a good friend and a supporter of this community. I know that and I told him this before, way back in history, we're going to do a genealogy test, because way back in history, probably in the mid-1800s, you know, our families mixed together, and down in the South. We got some bloodlines, because, you know, his closeness to our community has to be noted as worthy. He has always thought about how can I include the African-American community in the east side of Buffalo in what I'm doing. And for that, I'm very proud of him. And I want to introduce him, man of the moment, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Senator Chuck Schumer, the Majority Leader, as has been said, probably the most consequential Senate Majority Leader in the last century. Kirsten Gillibrand, Mayor Byron Brown, and the Restore Our Community Coalition. We are here with the U.S. Transportation Secretary, the Honorable Pete Buttigieg, and the reason we're here today is Secretary Buttigieg is not interested in through counts. He's not interested in the exclusive objective of moving cars. He's a former mayor, like our mayor. He has a vision for what makes communities better and stronger in places where people want to invest. Secretary Buttigieg, we are honored that you came to our city today to deliver $55 million for this very, very worthy project. Thank you for being here. It is said that the built environment, that which is built by man, that which is curated by individuals, is never neutral. It either serves to hurt or to heal. In 1868, Frederick Law Olmsted came to Buffalo after having designed Central Park in New York City to lay out a park system. 6 parks, not 1, 7 parkways, the most glorious of which was Humboldt Parkway. It was used by kids to play in, by adults to walk in. If you look at the historical record, it talks about the Olmsted Park system, and there's an asterisk next to Humboldt Park with one word. It says lost. Today it is found. Today it is found. This is a day of healing. This community has been through hell in the last year. It is said that we suffer our way to wisdom. We suffer our way to wisdom. To live is to suffer. To endure the suffering, to transcend it, is to give the suffering meaning. When you suffer, 2 results. One is you're either broken, you retreat into yourself, you become bitter, or you're broken open. You give of yourself to friends, to family, and to community. This community has been broken open. This community has been broken open. This is one of many, many projects that will serve to restore this community and create economic growth and life quality, the things that we all seek. So this is a good day, as Mayor Brown has said, as the Secretary has delivered, as the vision and hard work of Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has produced, along with my great friend and former colleague in the House of Representatives, and now the junior senator from the state of New York, Kirsten Gillibrand.
So today really is a great day because this is the culmination of decades of work by Stephanie Jeter, by the community, really asking for what they wanted. I mean, look how beautiful Humboldt Parkway was historically. It was stunning. It was a glorious community where families could communicate to their neighbors, walk across the street, and you look today, it's divided by the highway, just divided straight in half, and it cut this community in half because at that era, they didn't care about low-income communities, they didn't care about black and brown communities, and they designed our infrastructure in this Robert Moses era to really undermine low-income communities and communities of color. And so this is the day that we are actually rectifying that wrong. And I really want to emphasize how important the community is. One of the first meetings I took when I became senator in 2009 was with Stephanie. And it was with many of these community members that are here today. And they showed me the plan of what this new reform would look like, what the community would look like. And it was the labor of love that Congressman Higgins has had from the very beginning. Crystal Peoples-Stokes, she said this was the one thing I want you to do for Buffalo when I didn't know much about Buffalo. So this has been a long journey. But I can tell you nothing gets done if you don't have the right people in the room. And that's why the people standing behind me are so essential. If this wasn't a priority by President Biden to really invest in infrastructure as one of his hallmark achievements, this wouldn't have happened. If he didn't put our Secretary Buttigieg in charge to make sure that these communities were made whole, it wouldn't happen. If we didn't have Senator Chuck Schumer as the majority leader, there's no way $55 million would be flowing to this community. No way. If we didn't have our mayor, who has constantly been looking out for this community to say, we need resources here it wouldn't happen. If our county executive, Mark Poloncarz, didn't care about making this community revived and creating a growing economy, it wouldn't happen. So this is something that is a testament to the people that are here and all the people who have fought for decades before any of us even knew about it. So I want to thank you for that. This legislation and this grant is something that will create jobs. The provision that I worked on so hard was build local, hire local, that if you are going to take these large infrastructure projects, that the people who need to be hired are the local people, that they need to get the job training to become part of the building construction trades, to become part of the workforce that gets to do these great projects of national significance, and that provision got included. We wanted to make sure that this kind of project would be important to the White House. We brought Mitch Landrieu here just a few months ago so he could see how big and how incredible this would be for the community and how it would be transformed. And so all the work that so many people have put in is why this is coming today. And so I just want to introduce our majority leader now, who I can't tell you what a difference he's made for the country, post-COVID, bringing resources everywhere that needed it, how much work he did on a bipartisan basis to find that common ground with Republicans on the big infrastructure bill, on the CHIPS Act bill, on our reforming gun violence bill. All of those things would never have happened without Chuck Schumer. And he is someone who just loves Buffalo, loves this community, and goes the extra mile every single day to make a difference. Chuck Schumer.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It is a great, great day for the city of good neighbors. Neighbors, not people divided by highways, but neighbors. That's what we are in Buffalo. I first want to thank Senator Gillibrand for that great introduction. She's a great partner. She has a heart, a brain, a soul, all that works so hard for Western New York, for New York and the country, and we're all lucky to have her. I want to thank our great mayor. He is someone who, in his steady, quiet, but relentless way, pushes Buffalo, Buffalo, Buffalo. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank our governor for really, she comes from here, but she hasn't forgot where she came from, as this $1 billion shows damn well. Brian Higgins, very poetic in his speaking these days. He will become the poet laureate of the House and of Buffalo. But that's because he's a great thinker. He's not a doer, but he's also a thinker, and I love that. And I'll introduce Secretary Buttigieg in a minute. But it's always people, I love when things rise up from the community. That's what happened here with Rock and Stephanie Barber Jeter. It rose up. And so it was so appropriate to ask your Rock soulmates to stand and be together, because the grassroots is what has to be paid attention to, and that is what's happening. So it is really a great day. Now, there isn't usually a crowd as excited as this unless the Sabres break out their throwback black and red jerseys. But today we're celebrating something that's just as big a win for Buffalo as when the Sabres won. The restoration of communities along the Kensington Expressway is going to be one of the most significant infrastructure projects in Buffalo ever. And there have been a lot of them through the centuries. And now, let me show you how important Buffalo is to those of us in Washington, including the Secretary, including the President. This project is one of the very first in the nation to tap the historic Reconnecting Communities program, and it is the largest grant anywhere in America of this program yet. Does Buffalo count? You betcha. Gone are the days that Buffalo's ignored. We got a majority leader, a senator, and a congressman who make sure of that. And that means that this new tree-lined roadway, not just for cars, but it's also going to be for pedestrians and bicyclists. Greenery as far as the eye can see. And I'm not just saying that because it's St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be green every day. And bicyclists, I'm going to ride my bike here when it's done. I'm not a spandex guy. I don't ride at 40 miles an hour, but I love riding my bicycle, and I'll be here doing that. And let's not forget my favorite word is a four-letter word. J-O-B-S. Plenty of good-paying jobs, and another five-letter word about those jobs. U-N-I-O-N. Good-paying union jobs. Building up the community, making good wages to support families so they can have a better place to live in and work in for generations is so important. And this major federal investment puts a national spotlight on Buffalo as a model how America can fix past mistakes, how ruthlessly highways were built dividing communities, how the poor and powerless were often subject to the worst of these consequences. And we're changing that. And a country and a community that can admit there were mistakes, even if they were decades ago, is a bigger, stronger, better country and a bigger, stronger, better community. Infrastructure should never again divide our communities. It's supposed to be convenient, a way to make it easier to get to work and shop and take the kids to school. But if you ask anyone here on Buffalo's East Side, in East Buffalo, they will tell you that for too long, the hulking walls, like Kensington's, have not been a connection, but a barrier, a barrier. For decades, 33 stood as a concrete symbol of the city's racial division. A barrier to jobs, a barrier to equity, a barrier to progress. For the Martin Luther King and Hamlin Park neighborhoods that have been divided since the Kensington Expressway is built. And it's appropriate, and maybe a little bit ironic, that the expressway is just 2 blocks from the Top supermarket, where 10 people were murdered in a racist attack last year. He went to that neighborhood, that community gathering space, because it was one of the very few oases on the East Side, because economic opportunity had been so stifled. But now we're bringing that all back. Today's investment is about building a future. It's about righting past wrongs. The federal government was responsible for segregating neighborhoods like this. Now the federal government has a responsibility to undo that. And that's what this program does under Secretary Buttigieg's wide leadership. I was so proud to push forward as majority leader and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. $1.2 trillion of infrastructure. And I want to tell Buffalo and Western New York, this is a big grant. You're going to see more of them in the future out of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So, Buffalo's a great community, perfect community for the Secretary to recognize, because of all the reasons I stated. So now let me do this. You know, I've seen a lot of cabinet secretaries in the years I've been in the Senate. You know, I just won my 5th term. I'm the first New Yorker ever to have 5 terms in the Senate. Thank you. It's humbling and gives me motivation. But I've seen a lot of cabinet secretaries. Some of them just stick to their desks in Washington. A few of them have no darn idea of what's going on in the rest of the country, the parts they didn't come from. It's rare, though, you get a cabinet secretary who knows the subject, transportation, community development, who knows the people. He was mayor, he knows what it's like, and who has the drive, the intelligence, the strength, the fortitude, and the honor and decency, not just to be a cabinet secretary, but his mission is to get a whole lot done. Today is just one example of the many things that Secretary Buttigieg has done and will do for New York and for Western New York. I don't think we could have a better, I talk to him at least once a week. If we don't talk once a week, something's the matter. We could not have a better transportation secretary for Western New York and for the country than what I like to call affectionately Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, there we go.
This guy's great. This guy is great.
Well, thank you very much, Leader Schumer, for the kind words, and most importantly, for making sure that this would be the outset of America's infrastructure decade by getting that extraordinary bipartisan infrastructure law passed. We would not be here. I just want to be sure everybody understands. It's been said, but it bears repeating. We would not be here without this legislation that Leader Schumer saw through, that is here because Senator Gillibrand supported it, that is here because Representative Higgins and other members of your delegation supported it, and of course, that is here because President Biden and Vice President Harris insisted that this be a priority for America because it has been a long time coming, and now it is here for us to make these improvements in it. I'm so appreciative to Governor Hochul and her New York DOT. The commissioner is here, just saw her, there you are. Who are undertaking this extraordinary work, who understand the importance of infrastructure, and that there's a lot more to it than simply repeating the patterns that we inherited. I want to thank and recognize Mayor Brown. The job of mayor has only become more demanding since I wore that title, and we are so thankful for your leadership. I feel very at home in Buffalo, even though this is my first time here. I'm the son of a let's say, mid-sized city, a lake effect city. To me, this is exactly how the weather in March ought to be. I mean, I think the only place that celebrates Dingus Day as enthusiastically as South Bend, Indiana. You've made me feel right at home, but I know this is also a community that's been through a lot. Things that came without warning, like the horrible, unthinkable racist violence that struck this city at Top Supermarket last year, and the extraordinary weather events that have caused so much damage in this region. And then there are the problems that played out not overnight, but in slow motion, like the effect of that Kensington Expressway that was put in without voice or view from the local community. That is why we're here. And so it's fitting that we're here with the members of the local community who actually made this all possible. I want to thank certainly Ms. Stephanie and all of the and all of the leaders of the ROC Coalition, Restoring Our Communities Coalition. I know there are others who had this vision in mind for years who can't be here, like Clark Eaton and Lumen Ross, and others who worked for so long to get us to this point. And I know so many residents of Hamlin Park are seeing at last what it means when you are regarded by an administration and leadership at every level, state, local, and federal, that understands the meaning of your work. You never gave up. You worked tirelessly to document the stories of this community, to bring it together, to pull a vision together, and ultimately to deliver this grant. And you have a lot to be proud of in this community today. You know, in the 2 years since I've been sworn in this job, I've seen and we've supported wonderful examples of how infrastructure can connect, can transform communities for the better. And our national transportation system, from the interstate highways to the rail networks, are a marvel, some of the greatest achievements in the history of this country. But we've also seen, and I've seen firsthand, how pieces of infrastructure that ought to be connecting wind up doing the opposite. Hamlin Park in the 1950s looked very different from how it looks today. It was a prosperous and much more diverse, active neighborhood. It was an actual park, lined with trees, covered with grass, connected by Humboldt Parkway to parks and neighborhoods across this city, part of the vision of Frederick Law Olmsted. And it is difficult, but for the community voices we've heard, it might be impossible to even imagine that green oasis. But we have heard those voices of the community. One resident talked to us about what it was like seeing that neighborhood in all its greenery, walking to the science museum with her family. Another described walking past all of the thriving businesses on the streets on her way to ice skating during the wintertime. And a lot share memories of how different neighborhoods would come together for football games in that park, or going to schools, diverse schools that were half black, half white. Decades later, people here remember the beauty and the vibrancy and the joy of the old Hamlin Park and the pain of what came next, When that expressway came in, it destroyed hundreds of homes and changed this neighborhood. Businesses shuttered, the ones that weren't already mowed down to make way for the project. Property values plummeted, jobs disappeared, and that didn't just make the neighborhood worse off, it made the whole city worse off. Consciously or not, we all know that infrastructure can divide. It's encoded into our language. The fact that American English has the phrase wrong side of the tracks tells you everything you need to know about our awareness deep down that infrastructure can divide just as sure as it can connect. And we can't ignore the reality that this highway left this community more segregated and more isolated from the social and economic life of the rest of the city. Some of the planners behind highways here and elsewhere built them directly through the heart of vibrant communities, sometimes to reinforce segregation, sometimes because it was the path of least resistance, almost always because black neighborhoods and low-income neighborhoods did not have the power to resist or reshape those projects. Now, most of the people who made those decisions aren't around today. No one here today is responsible for creating that situation in the first place, but all of us are responsible for what we do in our time to repair it, and that is why we're here today. And the collection of that historical record, the consolidation of a community vision, what Rock has achieved, is part of that incredibly important work of repairing what was broken. The other part of that is funding. And that is why we are so supportive of the state's efforts and why we are proud to support this community vision, not just with heartfelt words of encouragement, but with $55 million from our Reconnecting Communities program. Alongside significant funding from the state, that's going to help fund an effort to cap the Kensington Expressway, effectively moving it underground and build new crossings and park space on top of it, reconnecting Hamlin Park to the rest of East Buffalo. It'll make it safer to cross the street so kids and families can play outside more. It'll reduce pollution from the highway so that fewer children in this area have the health effects of breathing that air. And it will reconnect this community to places that people count on every day: parks, churches, schools, and jobs, including, notably, Tops Supermarket, where 10 people lost their lives, which will now be better connected to the rest of the community as well. Healing takes time, but it's work like yours that keeps us moving forward. And it's just one of 45 projects. Well, I shouldn't say just one because, as Leader Schumer noted, is the biggest of the 45 grants we have to announce this year. But it's one of 45 projects we're announcing around the country. Some going to construction, others in planning. In Baltimore, Maryland, we're helping the community plan to improve access by repurposing or removing what is called a highway to nowhere that divided several historically black communities. In Iowa, we're helping the Meskwaki Nation develop a plan to address a high-speed highway that runs right through that tribal community, makes it harder and more dangerous for residents to get where they need to be. In Tampa, we're removing an off-ramp and adding new biking and walking paths to eliminate the barrier between the downtown and the riverfront, because stories like this happen everywhere in the country. Some of these grants are helping take a project from the drafting table to shovels in the ground, which is part of why we're so excited about Buffalo. Others are planning grants that can in turn make it easier for communities to access other sources of funding. And we've already been able to fund projects that have this effect in Detroit, Charleston, Louisville, and more places. And no matter what form these projects take, and they're all different, they have certain things in common. One, we're working to make sure they create good paying jobs so that workers get a fair wage and build generational wealth in the course of that repair. And that is something we hope and expect to see here on this project in Buffalo. And yes, that means making sure that a fair share of those contracts go to workers and businesses who actually reflect the community where the projects are happening, so that they benefit from the work and not just the finished product. And maybe most importantly, we look for projects like this one where the community has been leading the way, because this is about empowering communities to define their own future. That's what we see here. And that's why I think a lot of these projects enjoy bipartisan support. We got letters from leaders on both sides of the aisle, people who aren't always on the same side of all the issues, but came together to try to get this funding together. I know we'll hear from a vocal few who would turn this common sense project into yet another front in some kind of culture war, who would call this wokeism. I call this good transportation policy that gets people where they need to be. There is nothing divisive about healing what is broken. This is not an exercise in blame or guilt. It is delivering solutions and fixing what must be fixed. Because these are highways, roads, and railways. They're not rivers or lakes or mountains. They're not divinely ordained. They were put here by people. And the people of our time have a responsibility to make right what was broken. This is not divisive work. This is unifying work in the truest sense of the term. Just want to end with a note of recognizing the young people who are here, students from the school who are nearby, because I need you to understand that so much depends on your success. And this is about your success. This is making sure that the streets that you will walk on and drive on and open businesses on and commute on and celebrate life on will be better than the ones that you inherited. That is our purpose, it is our obligation, it is our hope, and is why we can't wait to see this community put these dollars to work and deliver solutions that will make this whole country proud. Thank you again. Congratulations to this community. You got a lot to be proud of.